Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back for another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have Trump's wish to control Greenland and Panama Canal, not a joke this time, and in parentheses they added, next admin promises to be wartime expansionist president, from NewYorkTimes.com by CH4Locks, and that's crosspost from the Geopolitics subreddit. And yeah, I personally think Trump's just kind of trolling with the whole Greenland and Panama Canal stuff, but you never really know of him. He's kind of a wild card with what he ends up doing, so I guess we'll have to just wait and see on that front. I personally, if the U.S. wants to get Greenland and the Panama Canal peacefully, I think that might be okay, but I definitely don't want there to be any war over it. So that's my thoughts on that issue. I personally think the country's already too big already, and we don't need any more territories. But ultimately, the government will justify what it justifies. Then next we have how Washington made the migrant crisis, and that's an archive link from, it looks like, The Atlantic by Patam 13. And yeah, I definitely do think Washington does pretty much make all the crises by overregulating and over control and being overregulating and over controlling. And yeah, that's why we need to hold them accountable. But sadly, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I personally, I think if people do want to migrate wherever they want to, I think they should be able to do so. But with that being said, I think people look at migration more on the national level than it should be then on the individual level. And I think we need to look at things on the individual level when it comes to every policy, because the individual is the smallest minority, and that's why I think all politics should revolve around the individual rather than the collective. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have OpenAI's Visa buttering up the government to retain a monopoly, from Sherwood.news by Frosty's Lawman. And yeah, I personally don't care for monopolies. But that being said, it's the job of the people to regulate monopolies, not that of the government. If you don't like OpenAI or Visa and don't want to use either of them, you shouldn't be forced to use either of them. You should be able to use whatever you want to. And yeah, that's why I think it all comes down to freedom of association. If people want to associate with one thing, they should be able to. But if they want to associate with something else, they should be able to. And I think that's very anti-monopoly thinking. We should allow people, if natural monopolies are to form, people like those natural monopolies want to use them, like something like Google, they should be able to do so. But we shouldn't have enforced monopolies that are there because the government says so. That's my thoughts there. Then we have Cope and Sieve Dude from Ragnarok XG, and that's crossover from the Leopards Ate My Face subreddit. And that's a tweet from a user looks like his name's Ray. He said, African, Indian, and Malaysian telling Americans how much they need to be replaced. And that's Vivek Ramaswamy. America first means we want America to win. Playing for second place doesn't cut it. And it was him quoting Elon Musk. Comes down to this: do you want America to win, or do you want America to lose? If you force the world's best talent to play for the other side, America will lose. And then Ian Miles Strong replies to the tweet from Vivek Ramaswamy: they're playing for last place. Nativism is just another form of DEI. And I guess I would agree with Ramaswamy, Musk, and Xiong more than I agree with the other people, the anti-H1B people. I personally think H1B visas are kind of broken right now. They can be used to bring subpar people but to the U.S. rather than the geniuses and top of the cream of the crop that they promised to bring. But regardless, I definitely do think if high skilled workers do want to come to the U.S., they should have a legal pathway to do so, and that's what I think H-1B should be. We need a society. I would say, society is inherently collectivist, but I think the more high skilled workers you have around, the higher quality of life will be. And I don't really care what their color of their skin is, as long as they're high skilled workers and actively contributing to the community, and not thugs from a gang like MS-13. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the worst people we've ever heard of are publicly catfighting, in parentheses, 4 more years incoming, from CH4Locks, and that's crosswords from the Leopard Ate My Face subreddit, and that's a tweet from Laura Loomer. Breaking, Elon Musk also just canceled all my subscriptions and sent a message to all of my subscribers saying, Laura Loomer, deactivate your subscriptions as a way to demonetize me. That's a lie. I didn't do it. Why would I cancel my own subscriptions? This is Elon Musk retaliating against me for speaking truth. Elon Musk is a free speech fraud. Big tech just didn't want to be held accountable. What am I guilty of? Supporting Trump's own policy of banning H-1B visas and fighting for American tech workers. Donald Trump, Elon wants you to jack your loyalists. And I personally would agree more with Elon than Loomer, but I definitely do think, Loomer does have a point that, Elon's marketing himself as a free speech absolutist will actively, he's sometimes actively suppressing those who dissent from his views, and I don't think that's too good. I think we need to have free speech for everyone, and, I think Elon should be able to use his platform however he feels like, but I think if he does go against free speech, people should be calling him out for it like Loomer is doing here, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Hawk signs New York State's law requiring fossil fuel companies to pay for natural disaster cleanup from thehill.com by Tom 13, and they had this one of the classic debates among libertarians. Should market entities be forced to pay for their negative externalities? And I personally would be more in the no camp. I personally don't care for pollution and all that, but ultimately, you can't force people to do things that they don't want to do, like take responsibility for pollution, If companies do want to pollute, I think they should be able to, and I think the response is let the free market handle it rather than that of the state. If people don't like how much the company's polluting and don't want to use them, or even want to just start using force against them, I think they should be able to do so. But with that being said, I don't think it's the state's job to regulate them. It should be their own job or that of the people, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, from Ragnarok XG, and that's a cross post from the Leopards Ate My Face subreddit. Disagree with the man baby in charge, get demonetized, lol, and that's a tweet from looks like a conservative OG on Twitter. All of our influencers have now lost verification status as well as their own page, are branded nothing. We spoke out against HB1 visas, and it appears that Elon Musk intentionally shut us down. Is this the new status quo for America's most free social media platform? And yeah, as I said with Laura Loomer earlier, she pretty much said the same thing. I think if Elon wants to demonetize or ban whatever users he wants to, he should be able to. With that being said, I do think you should take a stand against him, especially since he promotes himself as being for free speech. Being for free speech means being for speech you disagree with, even if that speech can be interpreted as racist, sexist, or any of the other Istrophobics. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have case of missing Congresswoman sparks uncomfortable conversation. A Republican Representative Kay Granger moved to an assisted living facility months ago and stopped casting votes, a detail that wasn't disclosed to the public from MSNBC.com by Donald Key. And yeah, I personally think that's just another a case for age limits. I think age limits are undemocratic, just like I think term limits are undemocratic. But as democracy is an inherently flawed system, and I do think those would be beneficial to our current situation. With that being said, I personally don't think the elected representatives are the ones running the show in Washington at all. I think it's the deep state bureaucrats and the special interest groups, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Oklahoma Attorney General drops charges against officer who threw 71-year-old man to the ground during traffic stop from NBCNews.com by LegioX, and that's crosswords from the Oklahoma subreddit. And yeah, I personally don't think they should drop charges against him, but ultimately the state will justify what the state justifies, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Then we have, I suffered this morning because of government stupidity from Plasman 30, and they said, I suffer from wicked sinus headaches. I see my doctor about it, and it's my allergies, and the only thing that works for me is when I take Sudafed and ibuprofen. I wake up this morning with a really bad sinus headache and I'm out of Sudafed. Here in the U.S., lawmakers in our nanny state have put the over-the-counter Sudafed behind the pharmacy desk and require ID to buy it because someone could turn it into meth. So now I need to wait until 10 a.m. for the pharmacist to arrive so I can get some relief. I wait 2 hours to show up at the pharmacy, and they try to sell me Sudafed, but they can't because the cash register won't connect to the federal database to register my purchase of Sudafed. At this point, my head is pounding, and I want to put my fist through a wall, despite me begging the pharmacist for some Sudafed. She tells me that if she sells or even gives me Sudafed without logging into the database, she will lose her license. So I go off to another pharmacy. I have no business driving around in much pain, but it is what it is. Second pharmacy, same issue, can't sell me Sudafed. Attempts to explain that we live in a capitalist nation. I want to buy something that are selling falls on deaf ears. I finally beg the pharmacist to just photocopy my ID or scan it and just sell me the damn Sudafed and put it in the system where it's back up. At this point, the planet being so unbearable that I can barely think. She tells me the registry won't even let her complete the transaction until it connects to the database, so I ask her to photocopy my ID, open a pack, and give me 2 pills and keep the rest. I'll come back and pay for it properly when the system's back up. She tells me if she does that, she'll get fired and lose her license. I ask her about the laws that allow the pharmacist to dispense certain meds without prescription. She tells me Sudafed is not on the list. I go back to my car. At this point, the pain is so bad that I can't even think about driving. I recline in the seat and just lay there. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. All I know is that this was an hour later. The headache was still there, but it wasn't so bad that I couldn't drive. I drive to a third pharmacy and go to buy Sudafed. I guess the system was back up because I finally got some Sudafed. I popped 2 Sudafed, 2 ibuprofen, and just sat in the car. 15 minutes later, the headache was gone. I was able to drive home. I'd like to say a big fuck you to the federal government for making me and all the other allergy sufferers and people with colds and flus have to go through this level of hell just to get the simple over-the-counter medicine. I've actually driven 45 minutes to the nearest 24-hour pharmacy to buy Sudafed because the pharmacy is not open and I was out. And I read an article about that this law has zero impact on manufacturing or sale of meth in the U.S. and only one person has been caught in the 18 years the law has been on the books. So why is this anti-consumer rider we stuck into the Patriot Act still on the books? It clearly does nothing other than inconvenience people like myself that need Sudafed. I wonder how much tax money we wasted building that federal database and how much money pharmacies spent replacing POS systems to comply with the new law. And I'd agree with them on that, on all that. Ultimately, I think the U.S. is overly dependent on drugs these days. But if people, whatever drugs people want to take, I think they should be able to do so. And there shouldn't be a law making it harder for them to get their medication, especially if it's right there and you can just give it to them. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have read the NYPD's Mangione report that the media won't publish from ClinClipandSign.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, I personally like how the internet allows people to share things that the legacy media doesn't want them to see, like this new Luigi Mangione report. But yeah, so and that's why I definitely think social media is definitely a step up from the old legacy and traditional media because it allows for greater discussion and free speech when it's as unregulated as possible. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. And then we have, and they still won't fully understand it 4 years later from Helpful Feeding, and that's crosswords from the Black People Twitter subreddit, and that looks search from Ahmed Baba on Blue Sky, which is pretty much woke Twitter. Surprise, billionaires Elon and Vivek aren't fighting for everyday Americans and are actually thinking they're lazy and mediocre. Who could have predicted this? It's not like we spent the past year warning MAGA that this was the case. And yeah, ultimately, I as I said earlier, I agree more with Elon and Vivek than the anti-HA1B people, but ultimately, I guess you could make a case that we should be relying on what we already have. But I personally think if people do want to come here and they're high skilled workers, they should be able to. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. But I guess you could have a more nativist argument as well that the current citizens come first above any potential new citizens. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we've not been trained for this. Life after the new mag DRM disclosure from media.ccc.de, right by Frosty Slawman. And yeah, that looks like something on, looks like we were, I don't know, some tech thing. I don't really know what that is, but, yeah, I guess if people do want training, I think they should be able to do so. But, yeah, I think they should. I think if the private enterprise doesn't want to provide, they shouldn't be forced to do so either. And yeah, I personally don't think we should have government mandated training either. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on training because that was one of the main words in the post, but I don't really know what this is all about. So I might look into that later though. Then we have Time to End Aid to Israel from Ragnar OKXD, and that's crossquotes from the Workers Strike Back subreddit. Israelis block aid bound for starving people in Gaza. Delivery trucks burnt and food aid destroyed. Yeah, I personally don't think that's good. I personally agree. It's time to all aid to Israel and Palestine for that matter. I think if people want to extend aid to either country, they should be able to, but I don't think people should be forced to spend their taxpayer dollars overseas if they don't want to. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have CPS, good or bad, from Lazy MF 6234, and they said, I'm curious, what do other libertarians think about CPS, Child Protective Services? I have mixed feelings. And I think the libertarian perspective on Child Protective Services is that, like with most things, it should be privatized rather than state-based. I think protecting children is important, but I don't think it's the state's job to protect children. It should be the job of private enterprise, the free market, and the people, rather than that of the state. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have The Right to Post, and that's an archive link from The Atlantic by Paton 13. And they added putting this in the subs archive to refer back to next time someone starts preaching about free speech. It's a long and exhaustive piece, but it addresses well the hypocrisy of authoritarian conservatives have shown making the claim they are free speech advocates. And I'd agree with that. Ultimately, I think the big problem is when the Republicans censor content, it's the Democrats go, "Oh, this is the worst thing ever." But when the Democrats censor content, they go, "Oh, yes, Queen, slay." So that just goes to show you how people will justify what the in-group does when it comes to censorship, but will never justify what the out-group does when it comes to censorship. And that's my thoughts on that issue. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.